You have the likes of Antifa, but they do not know the history of what we now call Antifa, nor do they understand the person who is pretty much the role model for Antifa. Rosa Luxemburg died on the 15th of January 1919. She was aged 47. Now, as I understand it, I've been told that Antifa plans a sort of revolution for the 20th of January 2019, which is only about 2 weeks away. But most people, the foot soldiers and the mentally ill mobsters who form Antifa do not understand who Rosa Luxemburg was. They probably never even heard of her. They have no concept of what she was about. Now, Rosa Luxemburg would probably be the most accurate successor to Karl Marx, and they shared things in common. They were both Jewish. They both came from well-off families, and they both had physical conditions which required them to use narcotics. With Karl Marx, he had cysts and lesions all over his body, and with Rosa Luxemburg, she actually had a hip condition in which one leg was bigger than the other. So, considering the medical technology that was available at the time, it would be fair to say they both had a considerable amount of pain, or certainly a physical complaint, and this could only be reduced by the use of drugs like, you could say, heroin or things related to that. Very basic, crass medicine. And we cannot dismiss this as nothing to do with their thought processes. Now, Rosa Luxemburg was born in what was then Russian-controlled Poland. Poland at the time was divided between Russia and Germany. And she had some sort of mission to get into Germany. And she married the son of a friend who was also with the revolutionary spirit in order to gain citizenship. Now, one could ask, what was the actual true purpose of this? But what you have to understand with the Russian revolutions, because there were two, the Bolshevik Revolution was never meant to stop at Russia. It was meant to take all of Europe. So her marrying a German citizen in order to get entry to Germany and residency was part of that planning for a revolution which would take all of Europe. So to say that Rosa Luxemburg was just a bystander is completely wrong. She was heavily involved in what could be termed left-wing parties, which were usually underground. She had this idea that there would be this European-wide revolution. Now, a lot of people seem to think Rosa Luxemburg was some sort of peace-loving hippie of some sort. This is not true. But she did one thing that Karl Marx never did. Karl Marx talked a lot about revolution, but never actually participated in revolution acts. No, he wasn't prepared to fight on the streets. Rosa Luxemburg, in the event which led to her death, which is known as the Spartacist uprising, was someone who ultimately would participate, even though she supposedly thought it was a bad idea at the time because it was not extreme enough. And you have to ask, is this Marxism? Is this some sort of dreamer? Or is there the element of the Talmud which comes into this? Because Karl Marx and Rosa Luxemburg, and indeed most of the leaders of the Bolshevik Revolution were in fact Jewish, and they planned to take all of Europe. But there was one non-Jewish guy in the rank, in the mix, and that was Joseph Stalin, who was more concerned with consolidating the revolution in order to impose authoritarian power. Whereas Rosa Luxemburg believed in a libertarian Marxism, which was basically anarchy, but this anarchy was to be enforced. And when you look at Antifa today, you see the same things. Transgenderism, drugs, every bad aspect that any society could produce is being shown today with the likes of Antifa. And bear in mind that Rosa Luxemburg thought that Lenin did not go far enough. So the October Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution occurred, Lenin took over, and it was pure anarchy. There was just no law or moral authority or any organisation which was prepared to enforce basic decency. In fact, when Lenin took over, things like child prostitution were happening. Sure, you could put this down to people desperate for food, but this was Rosa Luxemburg's plan. And from that's when you got the Russian Civil War. Now, people who had been opposed to the Tsar and those who were loyal to the Tsar combined together to fight this Bolshevik, I suppose you could say, government, for want of a better word. But actually, what happened with this Luxemburgist type of rulership, or de facto rulership, was that it helped propagate Joseph Stalin to be the successor to Lenin. And as chaotic as things were because of Lenin, it wasn't enough. In fact, Lenin was shot in an assassination attempt by a Jewish woman because he had not gone far enough. Therefore, the cost of failure was death. So even though Rosa Luxemburg died in 1919, her impact still prevails to this very day. So what would an Antifa type government actually accomplish? It wouldn't accomplish anything. It would be a global anarchy, a global nihilism. This is what everyone on this earth at this moment is up against. It is plans for destroying the current order or various orders, but not replacing them. There's no plans to replace. So it would literally be a hell on earth. And Rosa Luxemburg believed in continuous revolution. The war would never stop, the violence would never stop, the degeneracy would never stop, nor would there be any limitation on this. And, you might say that, it's just some left-wing thing. But you have to look at both Karl Marx and Rosa Luxemburg and their backgrounds. They were Jewish. And the Talmud, which actually says things about Jesus Christ as being in hell in a boiling pool of semen and shit, which calls the Virgin Mary a common whore. On top of that, it actually gives rules for molesting children. Girls up to the age of 3, boys up to the age of 9. But that's for Jewish kids. Your kids, there are no rules. And we see this today, transgenderism, where I've seen it myself. Trans, whatever you want to call them, aged 14 years old, 17 years old, and I'm only guessing on the ages, but they were young. And now it's being taught in schools. Now in Australia it is. So Luxemburgism, still has this influence today, a chaotic nonsense which has become legitimized ideology. And if you've seen, I've done the first clip on Antifa, which concerned Karl Marx. But actually, there was another clip, but I will include it on my playlist, which concerned Mariam Namazi. And I consider her to be certainly a successor to Rosa Luxemburg. It is the same contradictory beliefs being held as being true simultaneously. Mariam Namazi, we have to fight Islam, but we've got to have open borders. When you look at Marxism today, we could go to, the war in Syria. You got different factions opposing each other. Yet each faction will have some sort of communist support, whether it be the regime under Assad, whether it be the Free Syrian Army, whether it be the Kurds, or whether it be ISIS. You look at it this way. If you go to a horse race and decide to gamble You could bet $1 on every horse in a race. Say there's 20 horses in a race. Well, you can't lose. Marxism will always be the winner. This is what we are dealing with. The only difference is you could bet on a horse which is placed at 100-1 odds, or you might bet on a favourite which might only give you $2 back for every dollar you put on it. It's how much you are willing to pay. But at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to pay, not those who are placing the bets on the horses. You know, money, well, what is money today? It is keyboard money. It is typed up on a keyboard, on a computer. And people don't even understand basic economics, let alone people can't even decide what gender they are today. We see schools now in which students come out dumber than what they went in. We are seeing IQ levels go down. We are seeing drugs now almost mandatory. You could say, you know, it's something I read in a book long ago. Whatever is not illegal will become compulsory. And this would be the sort of thing Rosa Luxemburg would approve of. You know, we have gone beyond ideology now. This has become a religion. It's a faith. Completely atheist. A religion of atheism. So this, you know, we cannot just write off these people as being nut jobs. They are dangerous nut jobs. They've infiltrated all aspects of government. So I may have said Mariam Namazi is a successor to Rosa Luxemburg, but people don't want to look at the actual successor to Rosa Luxemburg, and that was Leon Trotsky. Again, Jewish. So you are dealing with, at the moment, a diluted type of revolutionary spirit, but the malice is still there. The thing is, Rosa Luxemburg was not some poor peasant or a street beggar or anything like that. She was well off. So when we look at all the left-wing clauses and the ideologies, these come from rich areas, not poor areas. And indeed, with the likes of Luxemburg, Marx, Trotsky, and I suspect Mariam Namazi aspires to this, as we've seen previously with the likes of Nikolai Ceausescu and with the Kim family of North Korea. We are seeing a cult of personality, which is what this is really about. So it's the ideology can mean anything, can consist of anything. Just call yourself a Marxist and you're good to go. So my next clip, I will be examining Antifa, and yeah, it'll take some patience to watch it.